I snapped, I can invite my ex over, it's my house too. And that's when I saw something break in his eyes. But I should back up, because nobody's marriage ends in just one moment, even if that's the moment the last thread finally snaps. My name is Ella Simmons, and at 34, I never thought I'd be starting over. 7 years of marriage to Emmanuel dissolved like sugar in hot coffee. Quickly, completely, and leaving only a hint of bitterness behind. We met at my cousin's wedding 8 years ago. I was a perpetually single marketing coordinator who'd just been promoted to manager, and weddings always made me self-conscious about my relationship status. Emmanuel was the best man. Tall, with these kind brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and this quiet confidence that drew me in like gravity. He worked in software engineering, something with data security that he could explain for hours, but I never fully grasped beyond, I keep important information safe. Our conversation started when I caught him sneaking away from the dance floor to check basketball scores on his phone. The Celtics must be playing, I said, startling him. He looked up, caught and a little embarrassed. Busted. Game 7 of the conference finals. I'm surprised anyone noticed me slip away. I notice everything, I replied, which was both flirtatious and entirely true. I've always had an eye for details, the way someone holds their glass, how they laugh differently around different people when they're checking out of a conversation. I'm Ella, bride's cousin. Emmanuel, groom's college roommate. I'm supposed to be supervising the open bar situation, but he glanced down at his phone. Go ahead, check the score. I won't tell if you don't. That was the beginning. We dated for a year before moving in together, and another year after that before he proposed on a weekend trip to Vermont. The wedding was beautiful and intimate, just close friends and family at a renovated barn with string lights and too much wine. Everything seemed so certain, so right. I thought we were bulletproof. The first few years were good, not perfect, but good. We bought a small craftsman-style house in a neighborhood with maple-lined streets and neighbors who waved. I advanced at my marketing firm, and Emmanuel climbed the ladder at his tech company. We talked about kids, but kept putting it off. One more promotion, one more trip, one more year of freedom before responsibility. In retrospect, the cracks started around year 4, though I didn't recognize them for what they were. Emmanuel worked later and later. I threw myself into projects at the office. Our conversations became operational. Who would pick up groceries? Had the mortgage payment gone through? Was the weird noise in the furnace something we should worry about? Sex became less frequent, then almost perfunctory, then rare enough that I stopped counting the weeks between. I told myself this was normal, that all marriages go through phases. My friends with kids seemed far more exhausted than we were. At least we still held hands at movies and kissed goodbye each morning. Then Bradley walked back into my life. Bradley and I had dated for nearly 3 years in college. That formative relationship that shapes how you view all future connections. He was my first love, passionate and unpredictable in ways that both thrilled and exhausted me. We burned hot and ended badly. He cheated with a girl from his economics class, and I found out through mutual friends. The humiliation was almost worse than the heartbreak. I hadn't thought about him in years when his name popped up in my LinkedIn messages. Hey stranger, long time no talk. I see we're both working in the same city now. Would love to catch up over coffee sometime. I showed the message to Emmanuel that evening, wanting to be transparent. Look who reached out, I said, phone extended across the dinner table. Blast from the past. Emmanuel glanced at it between bites of stir-fry. Bradley, that's the college boyfriend, right? The one who was, and I quote, an emotional terrorist? I laughed. That's the one. Though I was probably being dramatic. It was college. Are you going to meet him? Emmanuel asked, his tone neutral. I don't know. Would that be weird? He shrugged. It's coffee. I trust you. Though fair warning, if my ex Olivia reached out, you'd probably give me the death stare. That's completely different, I protested. She tried to convince you I was wrong for you at our engagement party. Just saying, double standards. He smiled, but there was something careful in it. I did meet Bradley for coffee. I told myself it was curiosity, nothing more. I dressed casually, jeans, a sweater Emmanuel had bought me for Christmas, minimal makeup. Keeping it firmly in the just catching up zone. Bradley looked good, better than college. More filled out, less boyish, with subtle streaks of silver at his temples despite being only 35. He'd become an investment advisor, wore a watch that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, and still had that intense way of focusing on whoever was speaking like they were the only person in the room. "You look amazing, Ella," he said, giving me a quick hug that lingered a half second too long. "Marriage agrees with you." "Thanks. Life seems to be treating you well, too." He shrugged. "Can't complain. Divorced 2 years ago, but it was for the best. No kids, thank God. Clean break." I felt a strange flutter at this information. "I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. Some people aren't meant to go the distance. Taught me a lot about what I want." His eyes held mine a beat longer than necessary. "So, catch me up. What's married life like with Emmanuel, right?" "Yes, Emmanuel, it's good. We're good. Busy with work, but happy." The words came out automatic, rehearsed. "Just good," Bradley raised an eyebrow. The Ella I knew deserved spectacular. Something about the way he said it made me defensive about my marriage and my choices. "We're really happy. He's wonderful, stable, kind, brilliant." "Stable," Bradley repeated with a slight smile. "That was always high on your list." "There's nothing wrong with stability," I countered. "Never said there was. But there's stable, and then there's settled." He sipped his coffee. "Just saying, you always had this fire, Ella. I'd hate to think someone doused it. I should have ended the coffee there. Should have thanked him politely for catching up and never contacted him again. Instead, I found myself arguing, defending my life choices to someone who had once broken my heart. Somewhere in that defense, I realized I was trying to convince myself as much as him. One coffee turned into lunch the following week. Lunch turned into drinks after work. Drinks turned into texts throughout the day. Funny observations, links to articles, inside jokes from college that resurfaced with alarming clarity. Each time, I told myself it was innocent. Just friends reconnecting. I didn't mention these subsequent meetups to Emmanuel. Not because anything inappropriate had happened, I reasoned, but because he might misinterpret. Why create unnecessary tension? The weekend Emmanuel went to San Francisco for a tech conference, Bradley invited me to an art exhibition downtown. The kind of thing Emmanuel would find painfully pretentious, but that Bradley and I had always enjoyed in college. I went, telling myself Emmanuel was busy anyway, and I deserved to have my own interests. The exhibition was in this converted warehouse with concrete floors and exposed pipes, featuring large-scale light installations. Bradley stood close as we wandered through illuminated spaces, his hand occasionally brushing the small of my back, in a way that felt both familiar and thrilling. We had wine from plastic cups and laughed about the artist statements that seemed deliberately incomprehensible. "Remember that sculpture garden at Willowbrook?" he asked, referring to a park near our college, where we snuck in after hours, and you insisted that modern art only makes sense in moonlight. I laughed, surprised he remembered. "We nearly got arrested. Worth it, though." His fingers grazed mine as he took my empty cup. "You were magical that night." Later, in his car outside my house, our house, mine, and Emmanuel's, Bradley leaned over and kissed me. It happened so quickly I didn't have time to back away, and then I didn't want to. The kiss deepened, and 15 years disappeared. His hand curved around my neck the way it used to, and something dormant inside me flared to life. I pulled back abruptly. I can't do this. Bradley's eyes were dark in the dim light. "You already are." "I'm married," I said, like he needed the reminder. "Happily," he challenged. I didn't answer, which was itself an answer. "I should go inside." "Ella." His voice stopped me as I reached for the door handle. "I never stopped thinking about you. Even when I was married, it was always you." The words hit me like a physical force. The validation I didn't know I was starving for. The feeling that I was special, desired, irreplaceable. Something Emmanuel and I had lost somewhere between mortgage payments and comfortable silences. I need time to think, I said finally, and went inside with my lips still burning from his kiss. I didn't sleep that night. Lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss, replaying the last 7 years of my marriage, questioning everything. When Emmanuel called the next morning from his hotel, I could barely focus on his words. The conference is fine. Boring keynotes, decent networking, he was saying. How about you? Doing anything fun? Just the usual, I replied. Caught up on some work. Might meet Zoe for lunch. The lie came easily, which scared me. Tell her hi from me. Oh, and can you check if I left my charger in the office? The black one, not the... I know which one, I cut him off. Irrationally annoyed at this mundane conversation while my entire internal world was in chaos. A pause. Everything okay? Fine. Just tired. Bad sleep. Well, I'll be home tomorrow night. We can get takeout from that Thai place you like. Sounds good, I said, already knowing I would meet Bradley again before then. We met for lunch. I told him the kiss was a mistake, that it couldn't happen again. He nodded, respectful but not apologetic. I understand, but I need you to know something, Ella. What we had, what we could have again. It doesn't come along twice in a lifetime. I made a terrible mistake with you in college. I was young and stupid and didn't realize what I had. I've spent 15 years regretting it. That's not fair, I said quietly. You can't put that on me now. I'm not putting anything on you. I'm telling you how I feel. The rest is up to you. The text messages increased after that. Bradley knew exactly when to be persistent and when to back off, when to remind me of our past, and when to paint pictures of a possible future. I found myself checking my phone constantly, smiling at inside jokes, feeling more alive than I had in years. One evening, Bradley sent a photo of a sunset from his balcony with the text, "This view is only missing one thing." I was smiling at my phone when Emmanuel walked into the kitchen. Good news, he asked, grabbing a glass of water. I locked my screen too quickly. Just a funny meme Zoe sent. Emmanuel's expression changed subtly, a tightening around the eyes, a slight pause before he nodded. Cool. He turned to leave, then stopped. Actually, can we talk for a minute? My heart rate spiked. Sure, what's up? He leaned against the counter, studying me. Is there something going on that I should know about? What do you mean? I deflected, though I knew exactly what he meant. You're different lately, distracted, always on your phone. You left your location sharing turned off. You've been having lunch with Zoe more times in the past month than in the past year. His voice was steady, but his knuckles were white around his water glass. Are you spying on me? I went immediately on the offensive. Not spying, Ella, noticing. There's a difference. I forced a laugh. You're being paranoid. I've just been busy with work and yes, reconnecting with friends. Is that a crime? Friends like Bradley? He watched my face carefully. I felt the blood drain from my face. How did you... Zoe called me yesterday, asking if everything was okay with us because you've been acting strange. She mentioned she hadn't actually seen you in weeks, despite you saying you were having lunch with her. Emmanuel set his glass down carefully. So I'm asking you directly, what's going on with Bradley? We're just friends, I insisted. We get coffee sometimes, catch up, it's nothing. Do you think I'm stupid? Emmanuel's voice remained calm, which somehow made it worse. You light up when your phone buzzes. You've been putting password locks on everything. You're out until 11 for drinks with coworkers and come home smelling like cologne. You're tracking my comings and goings now, I shot back. Guilt making me aggressive. That's controlling and creepy, Emmanuel. No, what's creepy is my wife lying to my face. For the first time, anger edged into his voice. Just tell me the truth. Are you having an affair? No, I protested. And technically it wasn't a lie. We'd only kissed that once. Everything else was just emotional. Bradley and I are just friends. Yes, we've been hanging out. No, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd overreact exactly like this. Emmanuel stared at me for a long moment. I want to believe you, but I don't. If you're just friends, let me see your phone. Absolutely not, I clutched it tighter. I'm entitled to privacy. Privacy, yes. Secrecy, no, not in a marriage. This conversation is over, I said, standing up. I'm not being interrogated in my own home. I walked out, locked myself in the guest bathroom, and texted Bradley. Emmanuel suspects something. He's asking questions. Bradley replied immediately, maybe it's time to be honest, with him and yourself. The next 2 weeks were excruciating. Emmanuel and I circled each other like wary animals. Our conversations reduced to logistics and hollow pleasantries. He stopped asking where I was going or who I was texting, which somehow felt worse than the questioning, like he'd already given up. Meanwhile, Bradley became increasingly bold. He sent flowers to my office. He suggested weekend getaways. He talked about a future where we could do it right this time. I was intoxicated by his attention, by feeling desired and pursued. Qualities that had once seemed childish about him. His impulsivity, his intensity, now felt like antidotes to my too predictable life. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Emmanuel had texted that he would be working late. I invited Bradley over, not for anything physical, I told myself, just to talk in private. But we both knew the invitation itself crossed a line. Bradley arrived with wine and that smile that still made my stomach flip. We sat on the couch, our couch, mine, and Emmanuel's, with music playing and lights dimmed. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by loaded pauses and lingering eye contact. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. I've missed you, he said, voice low. All these years. I should have pulled my hand away, should have maintained some boundary. Instead, I said, I've missed you too. The garage door opener hummed to life, the sound hitting me like an electric shock. Bradley and I jumped apart, but not quickly enough. Emmanuel walked in, takeout bags in hand, and froze in the entryway. The three of us stared at each other in a moment suspended in horror. Emmanuel's eyes moved from Bradley's face to our wine glasses to the dimmed lights, understanding everything in an instant. The bags dropped to the floor. Emmanuel, I started, standing up. This isn't, don't, he cut me off, his voice frighteningly quiet. Don't insult me by lying about what this obviously is. Bradley stood too, hand extended awkwardly. Hey man, we were just... Get out of my house, Emmanuel said with deadly calm. Now. Bradley looked at me, uncertain. I nodded slightly, and he grabbed his jacket. Call me later, he murmured as he edged past Emmanuel, who stood rigid as stone. Once we were alone, the silence was deafening. I tried again. It's not what you think. We were just talking. In our house? Emmanuel's voice shook slightly. With the lights dimmed, wine poured, while I'm supposedly at work? Don't do this, Ella. Don't make it worse by lying. Fine. We've been spending time together. But nothing physical has happened. Another technical truth that felt like a lie. Do you love him? Emmanuel asked bluntly. I hesitated too long before answering. I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated. Emmanuel laughed hollowly. No, it's actually very simple. You either love your husband or you love another man. That's not fair. Feelings aren't binary like your computer code. Don't patronize me, he snapped. This isn't about the nuances of emotion. This is about respect and choices. You chose to invite your ex-boyfriend into our home behind my back. I can invite whoever I want over, I said defensively. It's my house, too. The moment the words left my mouth, I saw something extinguish in Emmanuel's eyes. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. You're right. It is your house, too. His voice was terribly calm. And you've made your choice very clear. He walked past me, up the stairs to our bedroom. I heard drawers opening, closet doors sliding. When he returned 20 minutes later, he had a duffel bag over his shoulder. What are you doing? I asked. panic rising. Leaving. Emmanuel, that's ridiculous. We need to talk about this like adults. There's nothing to talk about. You've been lying to me for weeks. You invited another man into our home, a man you have feelings for. I won't stay and watch this happen. He picked up his keys from the hook by the door. So you're just walking out? 7 years of marriage and you're not even going to fight for us? I was crying now, the gravity of the situation finally hitting me. He paused, hand on the doorknob. That's the problem, Ella. I've been the only one fighting for us. You've been fighting for something else entirely. He looked at me one last time. Call him if you want. The house is yours too, right? The door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded unnervingly final. I stood frozen in our entryway, surrounded by the life we'd built, the photographs from our honeymoon, the ridiculous art piece we'd bought in Santa Fe, the throw pillows we'd argued over at IKEA. The takeout bags Emmanuel had brought home lay forgotten on the floor, a gesture of thoughtfulness I hadn't deserved. My phone buzzed. Bradley. Everything okay? Should I come back? I stared at the message, the fantasy of Bradley colliding violently with the reality of what I'd just done. In that moment, I finally saw clearly what I'd been too selfish to recognize. I'd been chasing a ghost, an idealized memory of passion that conveniently lacked the complications of real, everyday love. No, I typed back. Don't come back. This was a mistake. His response was immediate. You're upset. Let's talk tomorrow when things calm down. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. This ends now. I turned off my phone and sank to the floor, back against the door Emmanuel had just walked through, sobbing until my throat was raw. Emmanuel stayed with a coworker that night and the next. On the third day, he returned to collect more of his things while I was at work, leaving his house key on the kitchen counter. Seeing that small brass key, divorced from the ring that had held it for 7 years, broke something in me that I hadn't realized was still intact. I called Bradley that evening, expecting comfort, expecting the future he'd been promising. Instead, his enthusiasm had noticeably cooled. Of course I still want to see you, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I just think maybe we should take some time. You're going through a lot right now. Translation: now that I was actually available, actually complicated with real-life baggage and pain, I wasn't quite so appealing. The fantasy was better than the reality. I wasn't surprised, not really. Bradley had always been better at the chase than the capture. 3 months later, Emmanuel and I sat across from each other in a mediator's office, dividing the remains of our life together with clinical precision. The house would be sold, proceeds split. Retirement accounts divided. Joint credit cards closed. He never raised his voice, never accused me of anything beyond what he'd seen with his own eyes. His dignity made my betrayal feel even more shameful. I want you to know, I said during a break, when the mediator had stepped out, that nothing physical ever happened between me and Bradley. Beyond that one night, I mean. Emmanuel looked at me for a long moment. Does that distinction matter to you? I thought it might matter to you. He shook his head slightly. The physical part was never what hurt the most, Ella. It was the lies, the secrecy. The fact that our marriage wasn't worth enough to you to even have an honest conversation about what you were feeling. I nodded, tears threatening. I know, I'm sorry. I believe you are, he said quietly. But I also believe you'd do it again. Maybe not with Bradley, but with someone. Because the problem wasn't him or me. It was that you were looking for an escape, not a solution. His words cut through me with the precise clarity of absolute truth. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I moved to a modern apartment downtown, closer to my office. Emmanuel relocated to Chicago for a new position. Bradley drifted away once it became clear I wouldn't be the uncomplicated affair he'd imagined. People say you learn who your real friends are during divorce. Zoe stood by me, despite having every reason to judge. My sister visited weekly, reminding me that one terrible choice doesn't define a life. My parents expressed their disappointment, but never their rejection. On the 1-year anniversary of the night Emmanuel walked out, I sat alone in my apartment, a glass of wine in hand, and finally allowed myself to fully face what I'd done. Not just to Emmanuel, but to myself. I'd sabotaged the most honest relationship I'd ever had because I mistook comfort for boredom, mistook the slow burn of real love for the absence of passion. I'd chosen the familiar high of being pursued over the steady warmth of being truly known. I realized something else too, that my marriage had been in trouble long before Bradley reappeared. Emmanuel and I had stopped tending to each other years before, let ourselves drift into parallel lives rather than intertwined ones. We'd both failed, just in different ways. That understanding didn't excuse my betrayal, but it helped me make sense of it, helped me see what to avoid if I ever got lucky enough to love again. 5 months later, I ran into Emmanuel at our friend Carl's wedding in Boston. He looked good, rested in a way he hadn't during our last years together. He was there alone, as was I. We exchanged awkward hellos at the cocktail hour, both clutching our drinks like shields. "Chicago agrees with you," I offered. "You look well." "Thanks. I like it there. Different pace. How's the new apartment?" "Good. Too modern for my taste, honestly, but the location's perfect." We fell into silence, the weight of our history pressing between us like an uninvited guest. "I've been meaning to call you, actually," Emmanuel said finally. "My mom's been asking about you. She still considers you family, divorce papers notwithstanding." I smiled sadly. "I miss her. Tell her I said hello?" "You could tell her yourself. She'd like that," I nodded, tears threatening. "I'd like that too." Another pause, less awkward this time. "Ella," he said carefully, "I don't know if this matters anymore, but I forgive you. I've had a lot of time to think, and I realize I checked out of our marriage long before you did. I was physically present, but emotionally elsewhere." "That doesn't excuse what I did," I said quickly. "No, it doesn't, but it helps explain it." He took a sip of his whiskey. "Anyway, I just wanted you to know that." "Thank you," I whispered. "It matters more than you know." He smiled, that same gentle smile that had first drawn me to him 8 years earlier. "I should get back. Carl will never let me hear the end of it if I miss his big entrance." "Emmanuel?" I stopped him. "I'm sorry, truly, and I hope you find someone who deserves you." "I hope you find whatever you're looking for, Ella." He squeezed my arm gently, then walked back toward the reception. I stood alone in the hotel corridor, simultaneously lighter and heavier, relieved by his forgiveness, weighted by the finality of it. This was what closure felt like, not the absence of pain, but the acceptance of it. The knowledge that some doors, once closed, should remain that way, no matter how much you might wish to reopen them. I didn't chase after him or harbor fantasies of reconciliation. Some bridges can't be unburned. Instead, I promised myself to carry this lesson forward. That real love isn't found in grand gestures or heated moments, but in the quiet choice to face each other truthfully, day after day, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. I'd lost Emmanuel, but I'd found something almost as valuable. The understanding that the house we build with someone else is only as strong as the foundation of honesty beneath it. It was too late for us, but maybe not too late for me to build differently next time. That knowledge didn't erase my regrets or justify my actions, but it did offer something I'd stopped believing in: the possibility of becoming better through brokenness, and the hope that some mistakes, even the devastating ones, can teach us how to love more wisely.